Well, check 1, 2. This must be a first. I think this is the first time we've had a show where I actually haven't seen or talked to Dave all week. So I'm going to put him on right now. Dave? Oh. I don't know what it is. I don't think I can hear you. You don't say. You don't say. Folks, if you can hear Dave, you tell me. Because, does anybody here have a subtitle for us here? Can anybody read lips? Well, I have you here, Dave. Let me just double check everything. Dave is the guest. He has been added. Let's put you on solo for a second, Dave. All right, Dave. Can you hear me? Put your thumb up. All right. I can't hear you. Is your mic on? It is on. All right. Is it showing the level that whenever you say something, it's going on? All right, let's get from the comment section to see if they can hear you, okay? Because I've got an open line here. All right. Hi, Brian. Can't stay on. Hi, Kim. How are you doing? Good to see you. Let's go back to the double scene here. Joey's saying hello. This is the opposite of a silent movie, black and white with no sound. No, yeah. Am I muted too? I see my level is fine. This is the silent movie. Hold on, let me put in the chat here. Check. Nope. I can read your lips on that one, but I can't hear you now. Let me check loopback just to make sure. Check. Headphones on. Everything appears to be good. Check. We need our folks. We'll be there, folks. We'll get this right. Brian is fine. Dave, get your microphone on. Do you have your laptop? I have to put him on a... Thank you, Trev. Thank you, Kim. Hello, Veg. Good to see you. Here's Dave. Now we can hear him. Hold on. You're on speaker now, Dave. You there?
Yeah. What seems to be your problem?
I don't have any problem. They can hear me. I see your interview channel's perfect. They can hear you now because I've got...
Let's go through this again. Okay? To work with your obviously slipshod equipment, my output should be on what? For Sam, for you.
Well, it should have your microphone.
The Yeti X, right?
Is it plugged in? Do you have it set where it's...
Yes, you asshole.
Okay. I would take it out and then just use your laptop thing for a second just to see if it works. I just heard a sound there. Go ahead, Dave.
Well,
yeah, there.
You're like terrible. Like, you don't know what you're doing.
This This is what you all really needed to see. This is
What?
this is better than that video that went nowhere 3 weeks ago. I mean, it was just
No, you know what?
that I thought was the best.
Could you take off the goddamn echo?
Oh, hold on.
God.
Okay. That I'll give you. All right, but you
You're
know.
like terrible. You're
All
just
right.
terrible.
Look, no. You fucked up the whole show.
No, man. You know what? It's very simple. Let me ask you the first question. Did you change anything this week?
Nothing. Zero.
Did you download any?
No, there was no updates for me. No, nothing.
All right.
Look,
So
the facts are clear. You
Go
had
ahead,
the
let me hear the
Yeti
facts.
microphone in. You took the USB out from the Yeti microphone, and all of a sudden, things are good. I think his microphone was down to zero in the gain. I think that's exactly what happened. Yeah, he just messed
No,
with it.
I'm,
Okay.
I'm going to tell you what it is. There was a zero, but it wasn't. I wasn't down zero on the gain. You're down zero on your brain when it comes to operating. Now, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
I do nothing different every week, and you have problems every week. Whose fault is that?
Listen, everybody heard me. It was clear as a bell.
I understand that, Brian. You're not using your head, but everything filters through your system. So it's your goddamn problem.
Look, if your camera's not on, I can't take my hand
The
and
camera
go through
was-
the screen
I
and go to Washington and turn your thing on. If you don't
The
turn that on.
The camera isn't the point. The point is that you don't know what you're doing at the console.
Console.
That's the point.
It's like 4 buttons, okay? And it has
That's what I'm saying. That's what's pathetic. It's like 4
interviewee,
buttons.
okay? You are the person being interviewed, okay?
Correct.
And that line was completely open. And we saw the clear
What'd you say?
evidence is that you took the
All right.
USB out. All of a sudden, the voice was fine. Okay. Now you're using your laptop's microphone. Whatever it was, I think what happened is you had Ecamm set to your laptop microphone, and you had the USB in, and it just conflicted.
Well, let's put it like
Or
this.
maybe I'll give it. Yeti sometimes has to be updated, but you're not on.
No, what?
PC.
Well, here's the thing, though, Brian. I mean, I think it's very simple. Okay. I'm talent. You're production.
Okay.
Okay. Now, what that means is basically that 99% of the screw ups are your fault. That's all it means.
Okay. Well, that's our show for tonight, folks. We really appreciate you coming back. Just kidding.
Now, let me say something else. You said we didn't converse this week. What did you do that was so important that we couldn't prep this show, which is your show, which goes out to all these things?
It was a normal week. I was, working hard and doing some things.
Oh, yeah, well-
you were the busy guy. You were doing
Yeah,
your podcast.
Actually, what's funny, it is kind of humorous, though. And it probably was on my end because I've been
We're
playing
supposed
with
to move on
everything.
too. We're getting some threats here from the audience. Okay.
Move on. Wait a minute. Whoa. I am nothing if not recalcitrant. So here's my answer to you, Kim, about moving on. All right, Kim, we're going to put you on the spot. You have to send in a question right now that you want us to tackle. Because, Kim, the show is about you. Not you, but it's about. Well, the Anthony's. What? Everybody's a critic now?
No, Dave and I argue all, but we do it in fun. So, and everybody, I think, understands that.
No, they don't. It's not in fun. I really
we
don't
used,
like.
we used to argue all the time in the band, but yet we were the ones who still hung out together.
Now, seriously, people tonight, I am going to ask something. No, I can answer that, Sandy. Basically, that's his real color. He colors himself in life, but that's really the way he looks. It's bland, it's blah, it's old, it's outdated, and that pretty much describes Brian.
It's right in the settings, Sandy.
Yeah,
I'm
you
not
can
trying to
do
be
it.
facetious. It just says black and white. You just have to click the little box, boom, and I mean, I could
Yeah,
I could do it to Dave right now if I wanted.
Yeah, do it to me. Yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
I could do the opposite, and sometimes I like the look. Sometimes I don't. I think sometimes when there's a lot of color, there's a lot of saturation, both sides.
Yeah.
To me, it's unappealing when you have like two things side to side. I think sometimes it's good. I'd almost like to have like a black and white. Like I would be in black while the person being interviewed is in color, so that it kind of stands out.
That's a good idea.
You know, I like that, but I do like this look. Like for example, this thing. I think I'm alone on this one. Hold on, let me see if I can switch. Oh, Jesus Christ, come on.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, this is a demonstration.
I like this one here because it's got like I got just like a little bit of a mood thing happening here, and I kind of think that's cool. And I'll go back and forth because it's not good to be in the same scene. In fact, the rule of thirds, I should be kind of like over here.
No, Brian, actually what you should be is downstairs on this show and just let me take over.
There really is a lot going on for the comfort of somebody's eyes. So, like, even though in fact, Dave's a little bit too much saturated, but
that is true.
Having the black and white is, I think, a real help for this. I mean, that's much better, I think.
Yeah.
That's more natural looking. And the black and white isn't natural looking, but it does set it apart. And if I want to go to Dave, solo, it'll take off the tension and boom, and then I can come back to my thing. I think that's really basically the 3 scenes I'm going to do tonight. I mean, something like that. Keep it simple. No big overlays. But it's really for you guys back home because, if you see the same thing, it actually hurts your eyes after a while. That's just my opinion, but I think we're all kind of the same. As long as I don't switch too much. And I know I'll get criticism from a few people we know, Dave, if I switch.
No, but you know what's funny is I think it's really interesting when you try to do what millions of us are doing now, and we're all at different learning levels. That's putting things online. And I've said it before and I say it again. This technology is not there yet. It's just not. It's just not. It's a little bit better than when TV first. Yes. Vegematic, we're going to start with that in just a moment. But let me say one more thing. It just is it is ironic, and I was the guy who was billed, and literally, I had nothing to do on Saturday nights from March 17th to last week, right? And it was just the way it was. And since not a week ago Thursday, so for 10 days in a row, I've had something to do. So that it gets different. We'll just leave it at that. All right, let's. Brian, I think I'm echoing again. When will 45 be indicted? Okay. Now I can't hear myself, Brian.
Well, you're on, Dave. You're definitely on. You're audible.
Well, I can't hear myself on this end, but okay. There was, for those of us who follow Trump, not follow him the way his followers follow him, but follow him hopefully on his path, which is a little long right now, to death, because he's going to be around for a while. We got some good news this week, I think. And I'm sure most people know it, but let's always good to bring up some good news to start the show. He was being investigated a number of places, but New York, and there were 2 investigations going on. One was in New York City, and that deals, of course, with Trump prior to his presidency, for the most part. And then New York State, which was also dealing with that, but also more overlap into his presidency in terms of some things that were there. Now, what did we learn? That the prosecutor for New York State said basically that their focus has shifted from looking at civil violations to criminal. Now, that does not mean that Donald Trump is going to be accused of anything criminal, but a prosecutor doesn't come out and say that if there aren't going to be criminal charges forthcoming from the Trump investigation. So who do we know is under some investigation for Trump? We know that his chief financial officer is. We know that Eric Trump was questioned.
It's just technical.
The idea that would happen is and I will go on record as saying this, and that everybody can boo me when I'm wrong, but I'm pretty certain of what I'm going to say now. There was criminal activity in the Trump organization. That is clear. There's no question about that. There was criminal activity both as Trump prior to being president and certainly during his presidency. The problem becomes is just because there's criminal activity around you does not mean you're a criminal. Okay. But I think we know enough about Trump to know that nothing happens in his sphere of influence without him either ordaining it or knowing about it. So I find it highly unlikely that he threw up any caution and said, wait a minute, we better not do this. Whether it's business, it was illegal, whether it's not. So I can't say exactly Vegematic. I think also it may be longer than we want, because I'm sure that two things are going to go on. One is, if you're going to come after realize this, it's just struck me this week. I mean, I think about it all the time, but do you realize this is the first president in United States history ever to face criminal charges, both before his presidency, during his presidency, and possibly after his presidency, right? I mean, you could look at Richard Nixon, but they never got there because Nixon resigned, right? So whatever happens here is going to be precedent setting. But I think we're going to see it go slow and thorough, because while we all want him to get what he deserves, which is clearly prison, no question about that. If you want to send a message out, not to do this, you have to put him in prison. But the main goal is to stop him from being able to run for president. That's goal number one. So the news, when I say it was good, I am more certain this week by many times he will not be able to run for presidency than I was last week, because there is no possibility, as I say, there is none, that Trump was not involved in criminal activities before he was president, while he's president, and will continue to do so. He's constitutionally incapable of following the law. He never has followed the law, never shown any indication. In fact, he is one of that breed that he doesn't really, I don't think the law concerns him at all. His father told him, basically, I don't know in these words, but apparently if you believe Mary Trump, and I do, basically his father told him, son, there's two kinds of people: successful people and failures. Be a successful person. And, his father didn't put the caveat, but don't break the law. So I'm sorry, Veg, I can't give you a date. If you're really going to pin me down, by this time next year, the charges will be there.
So my problem with that, Dave, is it's like that old movie Indict and Convict, and Ron was just saying today in the car today, all these things that are said about Trump, what's he's done, what's going to happen to him, and I kind of believe her that you just kind of feel like, I mean, again, there's no logic behind what I'm saying. It's just almost like empirical evidence is that he's just gotten away with it so much that you almost expect it to happen. I mean, I expect him to be indicted.
I'm sorry.
I expect him to be indicted, but there's a big difference between indictment and conviction, especially with all the people that he has behind him, and that's what scares me, Dave. And I have no evidence whatsoever.
No, and you and I have discussed this at length for 5 years now. And I understand what you're saying. Now, remember, in some instances, the past dictates the present and indeed the future. Okay? So if you want to say in the past, prior to his running for president, Donald Trump got away with figurative murder and walked away, I have no argument with that. He did. But that's before he put himself in the limelight of the presidency. Now, again, just like you were very honest and said, I don't have any empirical evidence for what you see. I don't have for either, but I would bet, I wouldn't stake my life on it, but short of that, I might even if I had to. Donald Trump did not enter the race to win the presidency. He didn't. Okay.
Or if he did, he didn't have any idea that he was actually going to win.
Well, no, that's the same thing. I mean, he didn't intend to win the presidency. What he wanted to do was be in the limelight, which he desperately needs. More than, I think, maybe more than, wow, I haven't even encountered anybody, wow, I mean, at any level that I know of who needs it as much as he does. So there was that. But he also wanted to establish a more widespread for his brand. And the irony of it is, people say, be careful what you wish for. It just might come true. My mother had a little bit a different version on that. She said, be careful even if you enter something because you never know how it's going to turn out. And so he won the presidency. So, Brian, yes, you're absolutely right. Did he skate for all the time before he entered the presidential race? The answer is yes. Now, did he skate for 4 years? And the answer is absolutely yes. Why? Because he had a majority party behind him.
Right, and that's part of the problem. This is why, Gary, I kind of disagree with Gary with Capone. Yeah, I mean, they were lucky to get Capone, and if it wasn't for a good accountant. But, I think it's different now, Gary. I think that, as Dave said, you've essentially got a coup here. I mean, you do have a coup.
But Brian, I think you're missing a point now that maybe Gary does get. And the point is this. He can have all the power with the Republican Party he wants. Okay? That protected him to the presidency, right? All the way through his presidency. And we'll talk later in the show, I'm sure, about how does he keep his power, etc. But once those charges are put together, and as I say, I'm very certain that these will be impeccable.
Although I'm still worried about Cyrus Vance Jr. I mean, that's still a problem.
But I'm just saying they will come, and then there'll be two groups of people that will decide Donald Trump's fate. The first will be the grand jurors who will decide whether or not he should be indicted. Now, it is rare if there's, and remember, indictment is not anything about guilt. It just says there's enough here to look into it. I think if they present indictments, he will be.
I mean, there is a lot. No doubt.
I mean, he will be indicted. All right. The second thing is then it falls to 12 people. And so you could say that on one hand, America's fate, we'll probably talk a little bit tonight about the Supreme Court and the upcoming decision, which could be so
Are you
fascinatingly
talking about Roe versus Wade?
Right. And so we've got that. On one hand, we've got 9 people. Congress is deadlocked. That's not going anywhere. And you've got 12 unknown Americans, probably at this point in the state of New York, because I think they'll get indictment in New York before they'll get Georgia. And, then it becomes a question. And I do think for the most part, certainly money can buy influence in courts and judge, but not in this case. I mean, everything balances out in this one. Public opinion, 50-50, maybe 60-40, depending on the charges. The Republicans do not have 50% of the country. Joe Biden right now has 60% of the country behind him, according to polls. So, Brian, I think it's a whole different, Trump is now playing in a different league, but he's playing as if he were in the same league. And he isn't. Rudy Giuliani could help him before. Lies could help him before.
It's considerably tougher for him now.
Yeah, because this is going to, and look, this is one of the times you realize that this prosecutorial team that'll come out of New York, their future rides in their getting a conviction. Look at what happened to Marsha Clark and the team
Ugh.
that didn't get the conviction
Ugh.
on OJ, right?
Horrible.
Had that been the other side, right? They'd be the superstars. Instead, we get the goddamn Kardashians because
Right.
OJ won. I mean, that's a joke, but it's serious.
So
So
it's actually
yeah,
true.
no,
You would
no,
never
I know
hear
it.
the Kardashian name if they had
No,
lost.
no, no. And the other thing is, TV celebrity does have a lot to do with that. So you say, well, wait a minute, Dave. Now you just nullified your own argument. OJ got off. OJ got off primarily because Mark Furman was a damn racist, the lead cop.
Right.
And Furman got off because, quite honestly, Johnny Cochran is a hell of an attorney. And he used the best attorneys available. He put together the all-star team. F. Lee Bailey was failing, but had some, still had some ability to do. So you say, well, wait a minute, how's that different? Trump is going to get the best lawyers. No, he's not.
He had Dershowitz too. Let's not forget that.
Nobody is going to. There's no value in advancing your career through Trump at this point. All you can do is lose. Attorneys know that now. He doesn't have Bill Barr. He doesn't have any. You know who he has right now? He's down to Anthony Miller, who's still at Mar-a-Lago's, and I want to talk about.
You're talking about Stephen Miller, correct?
I'm sorry, I said Anthony.
Okay.
I was looking at Anthony
You
Davis.
think of
yes.
Anthony Davis? Anthony, you
I
don't
know-
work for Trump, do you?
Yeah, I think he does secretly now. Sorry about that. Sorry about me
No, he's
smirching
not a
your
Trumper.
name.
We know that.
No, sorry about me smirching your name, Anthony. No, I was looking at that and said that. So Trump is really down to one advisor, Stephen Miller, who may be smart. I don't know. Certainly, he went to Duke. He does this. He does
Well,
that.
he knows how to write speeches. We know. I mean, for
Well,
the propaganda, he's
but
good at that.
And I think he's one of the ones that believes the hype. I think he is 100% a racist. And so he's a true believer. Oh yeah, I got married name for. Johnny Cochran was good. I mean,
Well, the
think
whole
about it.
thing, with using that, this simple, saying like, if the glove doesn't
Well-
fit, you can't convict. I mean, but that was like, it's just
They-
perfect.
and he baited them to do that. That's not the prosecution really messed that up. You never do that. They made some mistakes, and Cochran was. But I don't see that same thing playing out. I think. How's Trump? If he can't get the best lawyers, and of course it depends on how ironclad the case is.
Right.
Now, there's an old saying from the Godfather years: if you're going to run a mob, and Trump ran a criminal organization, both in the White House and before in his business, there's two people you don't piss off: your consigliere, which is your attorney, and the man who keeps your books. And Trump pissed off the one, Michael Cohen. He turned on him, and now they're putting the screws on the financial officer. And it's one thing to be loyal to people that show loyalty. Trump shows no loyalty. It's one thing to be loyal to the president of the United States. Trump's not president. But when they're saying, look, let's be honest about this. We can make it so you'll be dead for 100 years before you could get out of prison, or you can give us some information and we'll see. We'll bargain for the terms.
Well, I'm going to ask you that, if you don't mind, because I've always wondered.
let me ask you. I will first on this, Brian. Would you take that deal if you knew you were going to go to prison and for forever, and then, or if maybe you could do 5 years and get out, and all you got to do is tell the truth about Trump?
Well, if you're going to jail forever, you would think you'd spill the beans. I mean, that's
Yes. Okay.
But here's the problem again, because you know where I'm going to go with this.
Okay.
It's was it Weisselberg or Weisselberg? Is that his accountant or whatever?
Yeah.
He's the one that I kind of have to think he's been lying for him his entire life, and he's got skeletons too. So
Right.
why would he? I don't know.
Let me ask you a question, Brian.
Unless you can get his son or his daughter. Or
No, you're very logical. Okay. So what you say is always pretty much true up to a point. So yes, he's been lying for him all his life. Yes, he's done well off of him. Has he ever faced the possibility of 30 years in prison without parole?
Yeah, I mean that's the question. But he's not easily intimidated. These attorneys.
How do you know that?
Because the very fact, again, and this is where there is some evidence in the past. All that he's done, he's apparently, or ostensibly, he's been lying for Trump for all these years, and it hasn't bothered him a bit, even though Trump has been.
You're looking at it from a moral standpoint that doesn't exist in their world.
Then does he really worry about criminal charges?
You want to go to prison? Do you really want to go to
No,
prison?
I don't.
No.
I wouldn't want to spend. I wouldn't even want to visit a prison.
Right. The other thing is,
I don't even want to think about it. I don't even want to
very good ways.
it.
Having been a reporter, I've seen this. Not from in the room, but hearing it. I mean, you could say a number of deals. Like, here's a deal: would you like to go to a country club prison that allows you, to play golf and have conjugal visits? I mean, he may be too old for that, but whatever. All these, a catered lunch. I
Right.
don't know. Or do you want to go to the political equivalent of Rikers Island, where you might become, certainly, you're certainly not going to be strong enough to fight them off. You'll probably be of the wrong group. You don't think they're prisoners who, why do you think they put so many people, or not so many, but people in solitary confinement? Well, there's some, oh yeah, I want to spend my life seeing no one. So I think there's very effective ways. And I think I'm going to say that up to a point, everything, Trump was sailing, Weisselberg was sailing, Cohen was sailing, everything looked good. They apparently do not have a conscience. They apparently are able to sleep at night. All that stuff.
As did Roy Cohn.
Yeah, but Michael Cohen wasn't Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn was a special.
Right, no, Michael Cohen actually kind of, I think, from what you've just said, that really played in perfectly with Michael Cohen, because he actually seemingly had some type of
after he was caught.
Right. After he was caught. Right, absolutely. But with Weisselberg,
I don't get the distinction. Why do you think Weisselberg will?
Okay, let's have a thought experiment. Okay. Let's suppose you're right. Let's suppose the threat is there. Now, you've got somebody like Trump, who you would admit is kind of like a crime boss. So he's thinking, okay, he knows exactly, because Trump is cunning. He may not be smart, but he's cunning, and he thinks, okay, now I know Alan's going to, probably spill the beans, because he's not going to want to even have a chance of going to prison. So he'll do me in. So I've got to threaten him behind the scenes in some way.
Okay.
Or his kids. No, I'm serious.
I understand that.
I mean, that's what the mob does.
I understand that. But the good thing is Trump is a very bad organized crime boss.
That I would agree.
Now, if we were talking, again, you can't equate fiction to real life. But take the scene in The Godfather, Frankie Pentangelo, Five Fingers, he commits suicide. They talk, Robert Duvall, as the consigliere, talks him into it. That could happen because, you're a dead man. Same thing with drug gangs. Who's going to kill? Trump is, the other thing is Trump is so high profile now, right? The only thing that probably saved him from being investigated in the Jeffrey Epstein, right, is the fact, one, that he was president of the United States. And we have to do something about that in terms of not just to do something about him making no presidents. We have to revise our criminal code for presidents. Now, Trump has shown us that. But the second thing is there were too many possible suspects in that, right?
Absolutely.
Bill Clinton, Bill Gates. I mean, there were just such big names, right? I mean, now we find out after the fact that probably one of the main reasons for Bill and Melinda Gates, although, divorce and the timing fits, was him hanging around with Epstein. And I don't want to hear that shit. I just hung around
can
with
we at least go into this for 1 second or a
Sure,
few minutes?
whatever.
Because you're talking about Epstein. You have people like Bill Gates and a few other scientists, whatever, who were there. Now there is a part of Epstein which is the intellectual and enjoys. He's not just this pedophile, which he is, but he's also something else. So
a con man,
now,
yes.
Right? Absolutely. Okay, but he's a sick man. He's a sick man. But some of these, he's right a few times a day, like stop.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there are some people like Gates. You wouldn't. I'm not going to speak for Bill Gates, but it seems as though, to me, from my perspective, that some of these people were the types that Epstein just liked to speak about the cutting edge of technology, and then Trump would not be one of those. Okay, that's why I don't trust Trump with this thing with the pedophiles. I think that we've shown some of the party there.
One of my, in fact, he was a reporter. He was my best friend as a reporter, W. Leon Pope, and Pope had all these sayings, and one that I think is almost really, really true applies to Bill Gates. Dick has no conscience. Bill Gates, let's look at Gates. I don't know what he did or what he didn't do. I just know that I'm pretty much sure that he wasn't a chick magnet in high school, right? Dweeb, nerd, whatever you want to say, right? Well, money's one of the biggest aphrodisiacs going. So suddenly he finds himself married, and married twice. I don't think Bill Gates is a stupid man at all. Certainly had to be aware. Maybe he thought, I can hang around with this guy and it won't rub off on me. You just don't. It's like, I can go hang with a drug ring as a recovering alcoholic and drug addict. But probably not going to believe me. I didn't touch anything. I didn't sell anything. You kind of are who you hang with, Bri, so often. And I think, so we're not here to discuss that tonight. What we are saying is, though, I think that's a difference. But I don't, I don't really think, I'll be surprised if Donald Trump had him silenced. I really would. Because again, you said it yourself, nothing touched Trump. Nothing touched Trump. And all this happened while nothing was touching Trump. I'm saying I see not a day of reckoning, not a day of justice, it's just the sheer weight of what he's done has never gotten to the criminal courts. And now it's there. There's no bargaining down. Again, to say a case, the quarterback, Deshaun Watson in Houston, who's facing all these Me Too charges. There's always an out there that can take a settlement. There's no settlement that Donald Trump, could offer. He's going to have to convince, or his attorneys are going to have to convince the jury of his innocence. Now, I can't think of a worse person in America to testify on his own behalf than Donald Trump. So that's out the window, although he'll want to, and he'll take over you saw he did it already. He'll take over legal proceedings. The first thing they tell anybody is, if you get the best attorney and you do what he or she says, or they say, if it's a multiple team, you forget yourself. You're not involved. You do what they say.
Right.
Trump is incapable of doing that. What we don't know is how much he believes the hype. We don't know how crazy he really, we throw all these things around. I don't know if anybody knows, even his close circle. We do know that people in his circle won't tell him anything of what to do. Yeah, boss, right? And that goes to your head after a period of time. Whether you're Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Deshaun Watson, Brian Weinstein, Dave Price, it doesn't matter. Okay, Anthony, dragging out for way too long. Yes, that's what you say. And I understand that frustration. And one of the good things, and at the same time, one of the worst things about the American criminal justice system is it moves slowly. It is good in that it's supposed to be relatively thorough. It is bad when you see something so obvious and want to get it done. I hate to use cliches. What if Biden pardoned him? Vegematic, that's actually been discussed down here in Washington. I'm not privy to these secret discussions, but I mean, there are people saying it. And then, of course, they say, well, look what Gerald Ford did. Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon. But it cost Ford dearly. It cost Ford the election. Had he not pardoned Richard Nixon, who knows? But he would have Gerald Ford did the right thing. He did. Joe Biden, we can all argue about how good a person he is or whatever, but I think most times he tries to do the right thing. And he knows the right thing is not to pardon Donald Trump. He knows that. Also, I would say things don't get personal, but for Joey from Scranton, Pennsylvania, by way of Delaware, Trump did some, and Trump's family did some pretty unconscionable things to his sons, and I don't think he's going to be in any way. And the Democratic Party, if he were to do it, I know that I would lead. Not that it would matter, but I would lead the revolt on the White House to say, Joey,
Right.
two things: you messed up, and I'm not going to vote for anybody anymore. I'm going to be an anarchist now. You are our last hope, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Not that, but I just don't. So I don't see again. Can I be wrong? I always say yes, but I don't see. I see why people would think that. Again, given the Ford-Nixon thing, but remember too, Ford and Nixon were the same party. They're not going to find an impartial jury. They're not, but they will find a jury. Now, I don't know how many people out there have ever served on a jury. And of course, there's a difference serving on a civil case and a criminal case. I've served civil, but I've never served criminal. But I observed a hell of a lot of trials, and one of the battles are often won by jury selection. But remember, you only have so many challenges, and you just don't know. I mean, and people lie. I mean, there's going to be people who do anything not to be on that jury, right? But there's going to be people who do anything to be on that jury, right? Just, do you know how many books will be written? 12 jurors have a shot at a book.
Right.
Right?
Change your entire life. Just sit there.
And so what happens is, I think they will find a jury. The jury will appear to be impartial. That is definitely, especially, I mean, well, let's look at that. At one point in America, they said that, Muhammad Ali, Babe Ruth, Muhammad Ali, the sports stars were the biggest, then movie stars. Trump is probably the most well-known politician. Presidents are very well-known. But I think because he was so, what word am I saying? Publicity seeking.
Benjamin, but he does keep talking about bipartisan.
Who, Biden?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of
Fine.
ridiculous at this point,
I agree, but look.
Ooh, that came out big.
Again, here's the thing. I don't really at this point anymore. Look, let's just say it. All politicians lie. All politicians misspeak. All politicians spin. That's part of the job. Okay. Trump brought that to a different level. But, a lie is a lie is a lie, spin is a spin is a spin is a spin, etc. I don't ever look at what they say. Ever. I look at what they do. That's all you can do. So I don't care how much he talks about bipartisanship. I'll worry when he caves in because of bipartisanship. And I I don't think his party will let him.
Well,
I
half
don't.
the party won't. That's for sure.
Well, I don't think. I mean, look, what the hell? I mean,
Or more than half the party. I would say most.
I
of the
mean,
party will not.
let's give, Biden comes from another era. We know that. He's a caretaker president. He knows that. It's time for whatever, for baby boomers like myself and the rest of us to get off the damn stage and let the young 50-year-olds take over, right? Or 40s. It's time for white men to get off the stage. And they're going to be, if they don't get off gracefully, they're going to be forced out. I hope some of them will leave gracefully. But if not, so Biden comes from a period with bipartisanship. At least the appearance was there. And I do think some things were done. I've been studying more after Trump's been in. I've studied more American politics and history than I've ever done in my life. And the thing that I've come up with is we were never, ever, ever united. That I've come up with, right? That part to me is a salient fact. But there were times when there were some compromises made that resulted in probably some good things. And Biden came up during that era, and that era is gone. That era is completely gone. And I don't see it getting any better. Unity is a wonderful thing. Talking about unity is a wonderful thing, but it's not real in this world today. Let's put some of our people on the spot, and ourselves too. Okay, so Joe Biden has all this. He's doing pretty well. He's doing fairly well, and I'd say pretty well domestically. But basically, that's all about the pandemic, right? Now he's running into real problems. Okay, what's your take, Brian, on this alleged job shortage? No, it's not a job shortage. This alleged that the Republicans are saying is a worker thing. Well, let's look at the facts. 22 states controlled by Republicans are going to refuse the federal money to go.
Right, because they know who they're screwing. Usually,
Right.
most of those are Democratic voters.
Now, I really read an interesting article this week that said there's two ways to look at that. One is that people are lazy because they don't take a job, or another is maybe employers should pay a decent living wage, right?
Right. That's what it all comes down to. If you look,
Well,
you bring it down
Republicans
to
are-
two things. If it was a binary answer, that would have to be.
well, Republicans are going to go with people are lazy. Those people are
Right.
lazy. Democrats, for the most part, being liberal, say you got to have a living wage. Now, the question becomes, what happens when you have a living wage? But that's a discussion for another day. So I don't know about what it's like in Bridgeton, New Jersey, or where anybody else lives now. I know what it's like here. Every place that's larger than a mom and pop is having problems getting workers for a few reasons. One is some people just don't want to go back out yet. They're not sure about the vaccine, even if they're vaccinated. So, they're going to stay home. Some people, yes, they're saying, I mean, I know for a fact, I mentioned it on my show, the young writer friend that we kind of oversee here, he went from $75 a week to $350 a week. That's not bad, right? Why would he go back to a $75? I mean, it's a part-time, but again, that was money. I kind of equate that money, and we can't let that happen. I kind of equate that to, the original concept of welfare. Welfare was to help people when they're down and out get back on their feet. But I understand maybe, why a person would. And who's screaming they can't get workers? Businesses. Well, yeah, who else would do that? But restaurants, look, okay, let me give you an example, Brian, from down here. Let's see, Friday night, so yesterday, Washington, D.C. restaurants were allowed to open at 100% capacity. Right? Now, a number of restaurants folded, but Veg, we're going to come to that in just a second. I like that question.
That's a good question.
The idea is here, again, Brian, you have this division, right? Republicans saying one thing, Democrats saying the other. Republican-controlled states doing one thing, Democratic-controlled states doing the other.
Media saying one thing. how they're
Well,
moving.
that's something I think I've been. I guess I fought against it so long, maybe because I wanted them to be the good guys. But man, they really are. And I don't mean Fox, and I mean I'm talking about everywhere. They're just blowing it. And I mean, so, again, there's some reasons for it. They're understaffed. They're this. They're that. The other. But they're doing the equivalent that makes. But they are actually doing it. Okay, so Joe Biden so far talking bipartisanship, but not jeopardizing anything he wants because of it. Okay. Newspapers, we were supposed to be objective. Again, I don't, I could go on forever on this subject, but I've mentioned it, Brian. You and I've talked about it. I mentioned, I think, once on the show, but I think this is important. Those of us who were of age to understand, who lived between the years of 1945 and 1980, saw something that never really occurred that much. Newspapers strived to be objective. Now, how they strive to be objective is put both sides in. And that's fine, okay, if the two sides are equally valuable, right? But if one side says the wall is white, the other side says it's black, and the wall is white, and you report the other side, are you doing it? I think you're doing a disservice. I think you are. The other thing that we've done, and they've become no better than anyone else at it, we've become a cult of personality. We believe Rachel Maddow. We don't believe Tucker Carlson, or we believe Sean Hannity, and we don't believe I don't know, Brian Williams, whatever. CNN's caught, although they're now moving to be what we're trying to say. They've been labeled liberal so long, they're now moving that way, and I can understand that. I mean, we're just so goddamn. Brian, I mean, I know you came up with the name for the show, and it's been other places, but I mean, that could be your real claim to fame, is the name of the damn show. We are so divided.
I saw it happening in '93 with the contract with America, Newt Gingrich, and again, it's like what Guy McPherson said. You don't have. I mean, if you're an artist in any type of way, and you have an insight into feelings and things and seeing things, it wasn't too difficult to figure out that, the Republican Party had basically decided that they were not going to negotiate. That was the only way they're going to win, and it got worse and it got worse. And you said yourself that it's not just Trump. It's
no, it's way deep.
This is from the ground up, and it's unfortunately, it was like the Tea Party, the lunatics. But that becomes the industry standard at some point in time.
Well, there was a great. I think I may post it tomorrow. I don't think it's been posted on Divided We Stand. It's and just I'll work it through kind of the cartoon. It's great. It's 3 panels, right? And it starts with the Tea Party walking a very small dinosaur, right? And then it shows the GOP riding the dinosaur, right? But still guiding it. And then it shows the dinosaur eating the GOP. And that's really what has happened, because they are now the party of white men. I mean, not just the way they look. They have
They know that, though. They know that.
Well, because they can win with it.
They think they can. Again, we're getting this cheat thing, but it seems like they're saying, this is the way we're going to win.
I'm going to go on record as saying they can cheat all they want. Okay. Where they can cheat, they don't need to cheat, because they're going to win the Republican-controlled states.
Right.
I don't know that they're not going to be able to cheat in the heavily Democratic states. Right? They're not. Not and win. So the cheating comes down to whatever the swing states are. I'll put in that group definitely Texas,
Georgia,
Florida, definitely Georgia, and North Carolina. They would be the 4 Republican strongholds.
And no longer can you put Ohio in there.
No, Ohio is Republican. And then I would put Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. So those 7 states, that there's a real, there's a real, what should I say, problem. But if people would vote, we talk about this record or great turnout. Do you realize there are countries that have almost 80% to 85% of the people vote? We get what, 46? We think it's great. So, and look, there are factors, again, I don't want to cop out and say, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. But there are factors beyond our control. I believe this, but I can't prove it, and no one can ever prove it. Had there not been coronavirus, Donald Trump would have been reelected president.
That sounds about right.
But there was, Now I'm not saying God reached down with his or her its hand, and no, it's just things happen, and there's causes and effects. So a lot of what we're looking at now is this. But what I think Biden is being besieged with now is the honeymoon's over. He's got some tough things. So one is coming up is the situation in the Middle East. What the hell do you do with that, Brian?
The same thing you do for the last 2,000 years.
But America doesn't. America's America's got to take a stand. What stand? What? Show me the good guys.
They're not going. They're not going. First of all, nobody's going to negotiate with Hamas unless it's some, because Egypt is part of it too. Because Egypt's not going to do. I mean, there's literally. Unless people give up religion, this thing is going to continue.
That's what I'm saying. No, I know. So, but America, we've got, okay, so you've got the, oh my God, if you say this, you've got the Jewish lobby. We do have a big Jewish lobby in America. And America has a tendency to go for the underdog. And certainly in terms of population, Israel is the underdog. Also, they are the recipients of one of the great horrors of human history, the Holocaust, right? But by the same token, if you look, man, they've done some pretty shady and shoddy things too, in terms of if they're supposed to be, a democracy and supposed to, value that. But we're gonna have to, Biden's gonna have to take a side. I mean, fortunately, there's a minimal ceasefire. What happens, 2022? What happens 2024? All right.
I'll say this much: is as long as there is a terrorist organization within this struggle, the United States is never going to be able to solve the problem. Because
well, again, I'm not an isolationist. I'm certainly not Donald Trump. But my question is, we've got our hands bloody anyway in that thing. We sold weapons to Syria, who in turn sold them to Hamas. Okay.
And Iran, of course, sells it to also.
It's two wrongs don't make a right. Okay. Because there was money to be made. And now, we've done the same thing. We've stocked Israel. So we supply, we're the big, we talk about, they Russians and they do this. We supply weapons left and right
to everybody.
We all the trouble in Latin America. No, it's not all traceable back to the United States, but damn, a lot of it is, right? And can we be, should we be the world's policeman? Can we be the world's policeman? Well, yeah, in some ways, somebody has to lead. But I don't know. I mean, they're just really hard decisions.
I think also NATO too, and NATO doesn't want to get involved in the Middle East. I mean, who literally would want to say, okay, we'll put a patrol in Gaza? Who's going to do that? Nobody's going to risk their lives.
Well, you just touched on what it should be. It should be the United Nations or some,
right? And they
joint venture.
Look what happened when they did it. They hightailed out of there.
Well, because
they started all of a sudden they were getting picked off by the same thing.
Well, look,
so they're not going to do it because like they know. Like I said, I mean, there've been problems with the Israeli government, with Netanyahu, with the West Bank, but you see, you have three different things here. In this case, you have the West Bank, you have Palestinians in Israel who up until now have been real happy living in Israel because they don't want to live in any Arab country. Or Persian, any Arab country. And then you have Gaza. That's the problem in terms of any way of solving the problem. And again, when you have a terrorist organization who's just literally just constantly, preparing to have this asymmetrical war, the UN has failed every single time. So like I say, this thing is just another one. It's going to be every 5 years. And the only reason, and this I will say for Trump, not that he did anything. I'm just saying Hamas was not going to choose to go to do this during a Trump administration, because Trump would have given Israel the green light to carpet bomb if they had wanted to. I mean, I don't think they would have done it, but I mean, Trump would have said, they know that as long as Trump was in there, Trump would have said, bomb the shit out of them. I don't care what you do. And then they would have had license to just continue. They wouldn't have carpet bombed, but they would have continued under a Trump. Right. And that's what I'm saying with Trump. That's what would have happened. Biden, I think, I didn't want to get into this whole Middle Eastern thing. I just see this as, and I even said it, I wasn't joking, it's 2,000 years. This thing is going to
right. Well, that's my point.
Continue and continue and continue and continue. And there's nothing, again, I've said this is just a philosophical statement, but until everybody gives up religion, this thing, unless they find some other reason to, hate with color and all that kind of stuff.
Well, maybe
religion would be a big one to give up, but you're not going to see.
I wonder. I was just thinking I was going to make something sarcastic because I'm working on a project putting together all this new information about UFOs. I read a really interesting article, how to talk about UFOs and not seem that you're crazy or consumed with conspiracy theories. But the old, not joke, but the old story was the aliens would attack, and the world would come together. I'm not so sure that was it. I think some would sign on with the aliens, and in America, the Republicans would sign on with the aliens, and
I've been honest. When I was in the car when Ron was talking about Trump getting away with this stuff, I kept thinking about Guy McPherson, and he would say he would be astonished if we didn't get past 2026. I'm almost at the point now, Dave. Even though I'm not a person who's depressed, but I'm almost at the point now. I'm just fed up with human beings that maybe at some point, if we're going to continue this way, I'm not talking about the Middle East. I'm just talking about everything.
I understand.
It's the guy that's throwing his shit out of his car along the way, trash. It's neighbors countries acting crazy, temperatures going up. Maybe it's just best that it burns down, because, and it's a terrible thing to say, but in a way, there are some things worse than life. I'm not
going to disagree with it, but the sad thing, I guess, is that happens. Who'll go last? The rich. And
they'll get first. As Guy said, they'll get an extra 2 weeks or 2 months, but that.
Well, but the point is,
they'll go.
If it's bad enough, and I'm not, I don't know. I mean, certainly, I hope. Again, I always say this on Facebook when I do it: warning, proud grandpa moment coming. But I really was proud of my granddaughter. She's in Australia, and a group of her friends, and she was with them. They signed out of school to go to a protest on the environment, and I want her to do that kind of thing. But I do think the hope is always in the young people coming up, and. Again, with the environment, I hope it's not too late. That's all I have is a hope. I think they will be more environmentally conscious. I don't, the fallacy, Brian, I deal with a lot because my project is talking about my generation, the baby boom experience from 1946 to today, and the baby was. You get this idea, the hippies and the young, we had all that, but it was not that big a group. I mean, it was just, but these young people, every young person has been brought up in an environment of every day when I walk out to school could be my last. Every day. And that was the one thing, Audrey, I was talking to my granddaughter about this, and she said, what I don't understand, Grandpa? I said, what? She said, well, I don't understand about guns. I said, honey, neither do I in America. She says, but that's everybody that I meet. When they find out I'm an American, the first thing they want to know is what the hell is up with you and the guns? And then secondly, is aren't you afraid to go to school? And she said, because she and her brother are lobbying to stay in Australia, And she said, to her mother, she says, "Do you realize I don't? Do you realize I've been here a year and a half, and we haven't had one active shooter drill?" So that's one side. I mean, so I do think if we can make it through past your buddy Guy Lane's 2026.
Well, that would be Guy McPherson. Guy Lane is
I'm
trying.
I said I'm saying I'm
No,
sorry,
no, by
Guy
the way,
McPherson.
Guy has been having some interesting reports because, of course, it's winter down there. But Guy's the one that's always, as you remember, he's the one that's really more positive. He thinks that things can be done. Unfortunately for you and me, Dave, like we're not like Gaia people, and I'm not trying to put him down, but he
No.
into this. But in a certain sense, I can understand Guy because he's very logical. It's just that, I mean, maybe he's just a little bit more positive than suits me.
Well, yeah, that's okay. I mean, we don't know.
And I really
mean,
like Guy. We both like Guy. I mean, he's
Well,
nice.
yeah. I mean, I think that I admire. I think one of the other problems, Brian, and it could show in this show too with us and our audience. There's so many problems to address. Where do you really start? Can you do it all? And there's no single solution. Okay, meaning if you do this, I don't even know where you'd begin to prioritize. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. I think it's overwhelming, but you continue to fight and you pick your causes. And you don't say, I don't think you can say my cause is more important than the other cause. You just, you try to go where you can and do what you can. So let's bring it back to, what we talk about here. Certainly, Donald Trump, for now, is the GOP. Okay. That's not going to change. So, people say, and I'm one of them, well, why the hell are they still following him? Well, it's easy to see. I know why he's following.
Well, does that airport scene with Lindsey Graham, does that kind of answer that kind of question? I mean, he got two people that spooked him. Two people came, two or three maybe at the most, spooked him.
Well, yeah.
Is it that bad where they're afraid of their own constituents?
No, they're afraid. They're afraid of losing their power. That's all. And okay, yeah. I'm not talking about Marcia Green or the one you're in love with the gun-toting, high heel wearing Boebert or whatever from Kansas, Boebert from Kansas. And but there's some idiots, okay, but some of the Republicans are pretty smart.
I don't know too many. I mean,
they're smart, okay. When I say they're smart, they're not. They want to stay in power. When I say they're smart, they look at the numbers coming, okay. Young people, minorities, they don't really go Republican that much, right? Why do they stop immigration? Because they tend to go, at least initially, in numbers the other way. What I think, and again, this is this is just my conjecture on it. I think they know Trump will not be in position to run for president, right? But he got 70 million votes last time. That's a good chunk of votes.
He's got DeSantis, who's
well, I'm going to say names. I'm going to say DeSantis, Cruz, Hawley, and more.
Rubio once said he's not going to get it.
Who?
Rubio won't even win in his own. Well, he might win in his own state. I don't know. He could cheat there.
Well, but the idea of it is what I'm saying now. They're all positioning to be the next Trump. Gary, I would tend to I tend to agree with you. I'm going to smart pubs, of course, the really decent ones are disowning him, but they're very few. But the ones that are there, but what they're saying, I think Gary's onto something there. What they're waiting for is that moment, because they don't even need to say, "See, I'm not for him now." Certainly, they do lie. I mean, look at the two leading Republicans, both McCarthy and McConnell, chastised Trump immediately after January 6th, and now are saying they do not support the investigation. So people ask, why is that? Do you know why it is in the House? To a certain extent, the Senate, because they're going to be subpoenaed to answer.
Right.
So it's ridiculous for any American to think that the way the Congress is set up now, that they're going to authorize any kind of investigation in any meaningful way that will do anything. But that doesn't preclude DC and some other places from filing criminal charges. So, but to think that they're going to do that, no. It was easy. 9/11. Oh, it's some outsiders. Let's have a commission, right? This is internal. And again, frustration. I mean, I think everybody who entered that Capitol that day should be charged with something and given the fullest penalty of whatever the charge is.
Absolutely. Hear, hear.
But that's not going to happen realistically. I haven't read recently. Maybe somebody out there has and can do that. Can tell me if I'm wrong. But there was talk here. They were actually said we can't. We don't have enough judges, right, to handle it. Federal judge. I said, well, shut down, South Dakota's federal judgeship. There's no law that says when you're a federal, I don't know if people realize this. If you're a federal judge, you're not a federal judge in one state. You're a federal judge in the whole United States. So send them to DC, if you're just short judges. But, they're just not equipped to handle that. They say, well, okay, so we let them go, we let them, whatever. But at this point, I saw just, the comment before, we're headed for authoritarianism. And I think we are. But I think, again, there's different theories of history. There's a cyclical theory. And I don't believe in that. I believe in the pendular theory. The pendulum swings one way, or people think it swings that way, and then it swings back the other way. But what it never gets is right in the middle where it should be. So right now, and that brings us to something I did want to discuss just briefly tonight, is what happens to Roe v. Wade. We don't know that. We do know that the Mississippi case is getting a lot of publicity. They are talking about this is the shot. This is the chance. This is the one that could end Roe v. Wade. What's your take on it, Brian?
You know what, Dave? I don't know what's going to happen with that. My guess is, as long as you got people like Kavanaugh and what's her face, yeah, I mean, that's why they put the court there. Exactly. And we're going to lose it. So that's it. Until we change the court, we're going to lose it.
Now, that's not a snap thing either. I also, not that, this is the best ideas I have. I don't think 9 is a magic number. First of all, there's been as few as 1. John Jay was the first judge. There's been a 7-person court at one point. But there hasn't been a change in years. Maybe we do need more judges. What we have too, Brian, and this is not because I'm on their side, it's just because it's real. You have the Republicans are out of step with what Americans want.
Right.
That's just true. And the reason that they have the power that they do is they control states that are small and white, right?
Right.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane that South Dakota gets 2 senators and California gets 2 senators. The best solution that I've heard, and I think is the fairest, 50 senators come, 1 from each state. Every state is represented, right? And then the other 50 are apportioned according to population. Now, none of the small states are going to agree to that. Maybe the Democrats wouldn't even agree to that because they, these gerrymandered districts, when the Republicans think about this, Brian, when Republicans gerrymander a district for themselves, what's left over goes to the Democrats. So, if I want to win and I'm in a Democratic district, do I really want to rock the boat that much? Now you say with senators that doesn't apply. Well, we'll have to see. But I just don't. I mean, there's just certain things that don't make any sense at all. The Electoral College makes no sense. A Supreme Court that politically aligns 6-3, not in agreement with what the majority of Americans want. Whether it's they're political hacks now too, unfortunately. Let's see, what else do we have? We need we need a constitutional convention to redo the Constitution.
Good
I just
luck.
asked people. I know. I said, what else from the 18th century? What rules do we follow from the 18th century, Brian?
What rules?
Not in medicine, not in law, not in science, not in mathematics, not in writing, not in I mean, nothing except this supposedly holy Constitution. Well, it isn't working. What do you do when something isn't working? You either burn it down or you change it.
Right.
I'm going to go with change first, and then if that doesn't work, then I'll join the burners down. The problem with so many of the burners down, the anarchists, you have to have something put in its place.
Right, and they don't understand that.
Well, no, they understand. They just don't have anything. It's like,
Well, that was what our debate with, what's his name, Antonio. It was,
yeah.
Who do you
Well, yeah.
have?
What do you have?
And then you tell us some name of some person. Both of us didn't even know who the person was. Like
Yeah, and I mean, certain things are practicalities. The way the system's set up. Both Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren would be better for America than Joe Biden, but they couldn't win.
Right, you got to win,
and you got to win, and that's just now that gets harder and harder as things are stacked against you. For the Republicans, it's stacked against them, by the idea of
And this
white
is
population.
this is why, Dave, we have these keyboard commandos, like saying the way things should be is. Lenny Bruce, it should be this way. They don't want to get beyond like leaving their room with the keyboard. They don't want to go over to Russia.
And
protest about the environment. They're not going to do it.
It's hard. I mean,
You got to be able to actually get the vote in the booth or wherever you're. That's the.
There you go.
Line.
There you go. Rare medium. Except I'm still a little bit concerned. I read Frankenstein too early in my life. I'm still a little concerned about the mad scientists and the unleashed projects that don't go.
I mean, you do have sympathy for Frankenstein, the actual monster, correct?
Oh yeah, no, he's not the monster.
Right,
the monster is the scientist. I mean, the worst thing they ever did was name, in the book, he doesn't get it. Isn't Frankenstein? That was the movie that named him Frankenstein. No, the monster's created. You can always have some sympathy for the monster. So who do you really hate? You hate the science. That's why I have more sympathy for Trump supporters than I do for Trump.
Well, isn't that basically an analogy of really what happens in evolution anyway, Dave? It's I mean, I know you're not going to like it, but
right.
This system creates a lot of crazy shit. And that's essentially what's going on.
And, if you really want to think about it, I think anybody with any sense agrees life is chaotic. It's not planned, right? I mean, it isn't. And anytime you try to put structure on chaos, it gets really hard. I read, I've been toying with this idea, so I've been, I tried to been reading some stuff on it. And I think I'm really going to get there. I think that although religion, as you said, plays a great part in the Middle East, in America today, politics has become our religion. Meaning,
right?
It's we don't really. When's the last time you've heard anybody say, "Oh, that Jewish"? I mean, it's rare, right?
Right.
The Catholics hit.
Right.
It's basically. Oh, that Republican
Trump
or that
yeah, or that socialist,
and you get and again, it's where you live so much, right? Easy for me, easy for me.
It's a geographical occurrence right now. The way people think, you mentioned the small states or whatever. Geography will define. All you have to do is go 500 miles to the west in Ohio, and you've got issues.
Well, I don't have to go that far. I just have to go about 35 miles toward West Virginia and Virginia.
Right.
Now,
That's right.
Fortunately, they don't like to live. They don't like to live close proximity. And I said it before. Washington D.C., the district, and here in Arlington, my God, is a Democrat. So yeah, it's pretty easy. I mean, I can wear my anti-Trump shirt still now. But the other day, I was in a train station. My wife was coming up to Jersey, and I stopped to get a Coke. And the woman in front, you could just tell she was just impatient. Oh, God, and she said, "And I hate these masks." Okay, whatever. She said, "It's that goddamn Biden just destroying the country." I'm going, okay, whatever.
Jesus, dude.
That's, I mean, so it doesn't matter where you are. Again, that's sort of like, I mean, don't you hear in that voice those goddamn Jews, those goddamn Muslims, those goddamn Protestants, those goddamn whatever? And that's really where we are. So does that mean this is the end, or do we get us versus the machines when the AI comes in? And it's a great, I mean, it's been the subject of countless science fiction stories and movies. If artificial intelligence is smarter than us, they may just say, you know how to make the world better? Get rid of them peoples. I mean, that's basically.
Here's the saddest part, Dave. The bittersweet, whatever you want to call it. You and I both are never going to see that day where everything gets filtered through, or even that victory for our side. I don't think I mean, aside from Biden. When we're this divided, okay, and we're really close. I mean, it's not 50-50, but it's really, I think, closer to 40-30-30, meaning 40% probably liberal, right. 30% I don't give a shit, just leave me alone, and 30% diehard Republican. And sometimes it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Every time I see this figure, Brian, it shocks me. Do you know how many registered members there are of the NRA? Well, I guess if they're paying for membership dues, I'm gonna guess there's, I don't know, 6-7 million.
You're over by 7 million almost.
Right.
No. So where do they get their power? Right? They get their power because of the money that they get. And they say buy it. Well, he needed to get, I mean,
he's
how does
dead
somebody
right now?
First of all,
he's not. He's got the money.
No. First of all, if he paid that much damn money for those suits, it didn't work, because that son of a bitch is ugly from day one. He paid what? Some incredible amount for suits, almost $200,000 for some suits, not individually, but a set of suits. And then they use their money very wisely. But no, they're not. I mean, they're 70. What is it, up to 70% now of Americans polled believe that we should have realistic gun regulations. So it comes down to money, and the Supreme Court did us in when they did Citizens United, which is the dumbest goddamn decision they made since Dred Scott. Corporations are not people. They're not. The joke is, I love it. I wish it was original with me. It's the best thing I've ever heard said about that. This person said, I believe corporations are people when Texas executes one. They're not. When Rudy said trial by combat, me came to the conclusion Trump wants war. That's an interesting one. If Trump wanted war, I'm going to challenge Anthony. I mean, not disagree with him. If Trump wanted war, why the hell didn't he go up to Congress and help him win that day? Trump wants to sit back and have other people do his dirty work.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's been any dictator that you know of. They're the ones that hired other people. They hired guns.
Right. Well, that's. I mean, by the way, here's a shout out that I get no money from a corporation a lot of people don't like. Last night, a series debuted on Apple TV, if you get it, called 1971. I believe there are 8 episodes. I just watched the first episode last night. I really advise people to watch it. For those of us who lived through it, it's somewhat nostalgic in not such good ways, but it shows how bad things were then. So maybe it gives us a little hope for optimism on the other side coming out of this. But what it does show so well is how sad it is that the things we were fighting about then, we're still fighting about today. That's 50 years. Now, have there been improvements in those 50 years? In some instances, yes. But some things, until, I don't know that we can, but until racism is 99% eradicated, until sexism is eradicated, until immigration is looked at as something we need, not something that takes away. It's nice to move on. And, earlier, some of our people here were saying, and I understand that, we're not moving fast enough. And of course, Dr. King said, what was it? The arc of moral justice, bends, but it bends slowly. And that's great. But right now, what about the kids that are being killed by guns?
Right. And so there's that meantime, and really slowly it can move. Or, some people would argue, Dave, that sometimes change happens very, very quickly, like in Russia, when they had the revolution.
We
can't always say that as an absolute, you know what I mean?
Oh, no.
Because I almost believe that too. That it takes, but maybe you just have to have, Obama win. Finally say we can finally have an African American president.
I think, myself, there's some things I question. Two things I question greatly about my own ability to perceive accurately. I gave Bill Clinton an entirely undeserved pass for his behavior. He was not, and I'm not talking about the Monica Lewinsky, Apple TV, the 1971. What I say is he's the one that kind of started moving the Democrats to centrist. Now he did it, and I was kind of supporting at the time because he won. That was it was necessary. But that's when we got that's when we started putting a whole generation of Black Americans in prison with the 3 strikes, all these things. And then the second thing is politically, where I think I was naive. I didn't think we were there at the promised land, but I thought it showed that we were advancing when America not only elected Barack Obama, but reelected him. And what I didn't see coming was the massive backlash of pure, unadulterated hatred for a Black American who had the audacity, his book was Audacity of Hope. Or one of his books, had the audacity to rise above the natural field. They might have let Obama be a mansion, a mansion person, not have to work on the farms. So yeah, how much? When I look at this 1971, I look now. Have we come far? And I think what's one of the things they say, Brian? The real sign of an intelligent person is to hold 2 contradictory ideas in their head at the same time. And I think you have to acknowledge there's been progress made, but you can't clap too loud for that because it's not enough. Bullshit. Aliens from south of the U.S. border are only aliens.
I agree with Anthony on that.
What?
They may be alien in terms of, that we can't identify them, but this, I would agree. This thing's not coming from outer space. It is strange, but it's a question of when will we be able to understand what's going on with it.
See, I like the theory.
And I can't say I'm 100% right, but I would say
yeah. Well, you know what?
99% he's correct.
I've been fascinated. You and I've had this discussion for a long time. I'm fascinated with science fiction for this reason, not the hard science fiction, but the speculative stuff, whether it's dystopian or even utopian. There's few utopias. It shows us where we might end up or where we might be. And of course, space travel is something that is there. Again, I guess I'm just completely opposite the norm. During the pandemic, I didn't watch much TV, and now I'm watching more. Also on Apple. Again, sounds like I have Apple stock. I don't. Another good show to watch. It didn't do as much alternate history as I hoped, but it does enough. Is one called For All Mankind. It's season 2. It's been renewed for a third season. My wife and I are finishing up season 2 in a few days. But in that, the Russians land on the moon first, and then things that it sets up. But one of the theories of these alien ships is they're from the future. They're not. Who knows what they are?
Well, that actually, well, that's interesting. That it's kind of like that idea. You write a note to yourself and bury it. Then just by leaving it there, someone in the future will get it and it will come back before you even die. But no, I get that. That actually, if there's a possibility, that's a possibility.
Well, I think there. I mean, I don't think you.
But you got to figure out how to do it, and I just don't see how it's done.
Well, I don't either. I mean, but really, I mean, if you think about it, bring a person from 400. What do we don't say BC anymore, but whatever we say, 400 years before Christ was born. Bring them into today. They're not going to understand the world. Yeah, whatever it is. And now, I mean, somebody 2,000 years from today, this is going to look just like the cavemen to them, probably. Yeah. I mean, although they're
with my students, the idea.
I mean, we don't know.
Decade things change.
Oh, right. Although, again, not to argue with you, I was reading a really interesting article that said that was true up until about 1980. And we kind of froze. And I started thinking about that, right? And how much have we really, I mean, there hasn't been, like the 60s was every day, the 70s, I mean, things were changing so quickly. But since the 80s, I don't know. But yes, they still change. I mean, whether whether it's breakfast cereals or whether worst decision ever for Chick-fil-A, they kill their coleslaw and put in kale. I mean, what kind of Christian organization does that just to be hip? But the last thing the one thing I want to talk about tonight, Brian, a little bit, and it ties into what we've been doing. And I actually even took some notes. I rarely do that. So would you agree with this? Donald Trump lived and died with social media.
Yes.
Right. And of course, at the end, maybe too little, too late, the big organizations, Facebook, Twitter, banned him. Facebook is, still debating what to do. That's, Zuckerberg is useless. Twitter said the ban is forever. So Trump decides, or Trump's people, Trump decide to do what he wants to do. So they go out, Brian, and they created, I don't know if you're aware of this, they created a blog. Now, you know how today emails are somewhat antiquated, except in business? Very few people email, right? It's all done on, instant IM or phone message, right? Well, the blog's like that. I mean, I write blogs, but blogs are for something other than quick delivery of information. But, them being Republicans and Trump publicans are a little bit behind the times. So have you read his blog? It comes out daily from the desk of Donald Trump. Have you had a chance to?
No, I haven't, quite frankly.
Okay. So you should. I'd urge everybody to do it. You don't get contaminated from it. I just think it's good to see what the idiot enemy is doing. Well, here's the hard facts that can't be spun. Since January 6th, the day that will go down in history as the day Trump tried to take over America, his social media presence has nosedived 95%. Its lowest level since 2016. Now, what happened in 2016? He runs for president, right?
Yeah, Gary had mentioned that it's kind of preposterous that I would say, he didn't say it like that, but that that I believe that there is other life out in the universe. I just don't think the distance is short enough, given the laws of physics and the speed of light, for them to get here. That's my point. Things are moving away from us now. Again, I can only speak on what I already know, and it's just a simple type of logic. I just don't see. I even with all these UFOs, we don't know. There's still nothing definitive about where they're from.
Well, I think I'm not going to take. I mean, I we all those. Like I said, as a kid, I devoured science fiction films and books and the pulp magazines and all that. I always kind of envisioned myself, fighting the aliens someday. They'll probably run right over me, but I just don't think we know enough. I mean, and I think the term itself, we equate unidentified flying object with spaceship. Would you agree, Brian?
Yes,
And that isn't what it is. It's an unidentified flying
flying
object.
object.
Now, uh, you know, and then myths grow up around things. There's some interesting things happened in Roswell, right? Uh, but is that proof? Do we? Let's put it like this: if we've got alien technology, we've done a piss poor job of using it. That's all. Why would they even need to visit if they're that technology advanced? They can just beam up whatever material they may want.
Right.
I mean, that's
Right. If they
another.
can get here, why wouldn't just they take the whole place if they wanted it?
Well, I'm laughing because a great science fiction story once where the aliens come here and we don't, they're not invisible. We don't see them because they want to come see the zoo. We're the animals of the universe. They can't believe that people actually, that sentient beings act like we do. So I don't know. But speaking of sentient beings, I just want to finish a couple of things here with Mr. Trump, a couple of facts. I want to warn people that this is coming. The Honorable Mr. Miller, who we talked about earlier, is promising it. And it's going to come sometime this summer. There's going to be an unveiling of the Trump Media Group. Okay. What's that? Well, I think that's Trump saying that, well, I had 88 million Twitter followers and 35 million on Facebook. Now he's not on either one. And here's a stat that I was even shocked by. Okay. First of all, it's always good to know. I did not know this, as many. I mean, do you know what year Trump issued his first tweet? Any idea?
I have no idea.
2009. And his first tweet, here's a surprise, was promoting his appearance on the David Letterman show.
See you, Veg.
Thanks, Veg, for thanking us. Reprobates, I proudly wear that designation. So I'm glad to be with the reprobates. Here's the thing, right? So this number is pretty astounding when you think about it. Since that first tweet in 2009, Trump has dashed off a little more than 56,000 tweets.
Wow. That's
which
incredible.
averages nearly 13 tweets a day, every day for the last 12 years. I think the most I retweet things for talking about my generation project, but I think the most number of personal tweets I've ever done in a day is 2. Facebook posts maybe 4, maybe, and that's not every day. It's just interesting. So we have to keep our eyes open. And would you like to know? They've unveiled this new thing coming. You can actually see it. The teaser or a trailer. Here's what I've looked at it, and it's described here. So I'll just describe it for people. There's a soaring orchestral music plays as the camera zooms from space, right, to Mar-a-Lago. There's our aliens, right, coming down to Mar-a-Lago, and these are the words: in a time, let me do it. In a time of silence and lies, a beacon of freedom arises. Wow, that's your boy. So he ain't giving up. My point is, but here's the thing. I think people are feeding him a line of shit that he wants to hear. You don't start overnight a media channel. That doesn't happen. And the insiders say that he would sign on with somebody if he could get two things: the amount of money he wants. Nobody's going to pay him the amount of money he wants, and he could have complete control over what he says and does, and nobody's going to do that.
Right.
Not Fox, not Newsmax, even the ones that are in that. Why would they? Why should Fox? I mean, think about this. Why should Fox pay any money to Donald Trump? They get the best of all of it with Fucker Carlson and Sean Hannity. Why should they pay anybody, right?
Right.
But it's out there. It's a possibility. And it speaks to Trump's power. Now we're going to take the thing full back cycle to one of the first questions. What ends Trump's power? A conviction or an admission of guilt. That changes the ball game. Right now, if you look, and there's been polls out there, he's at 40%, and the next number is like 7%. Favorite to win. But of course, he's a known name, he's a known commodity. People like him, those who, aren't like us. So again, we'll get back to that question. We don't know when, but I'll do something drastic if, what's today, Brian, May 20, what, first?
22nd.
20, see, I can't tell in this pandemic.
Don't
So
worry.
if Trump has not been indicted by May 22nd next year, I guarantee you people that on that Saturday show, whatever it is, Brian will do it completely nude. That's how convinced.
Well, I tell you, I will end the show with me almost completely nude
Tonight,
ladies
and gentlemen, I would suggest now, and it's rare.
But
If you value,
cameras
wait a
on.
minute, if you value your eyesight at all, this is something you do not want to see. I mean, he's kind of joking, but
No, I'm not. I'm not joking.
Brian, you didn't put your head on those naked gladiators again, did you? Like you're always doing.
Would you like to see me?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
Oh my!
Let's.
I'm gonna close. I'm gonna close my eyes. Somebody holler, say.
You're making me do this, so I figure I have to do this.
I see.
Okay. So we will have to do this. Hold on for a second. Okay, folks. Hopefully I won't get banned for this. So I am going to have to go back in time a little bit here, okay? So
Oh Lord. Oh Lord.
hold on. Okay.
Did you see the look of that person looking?
That's not my grandfather. That's my grandfather died before I was born because he got messed up in World War. That's his brother.
Right. Well, your uncle,
My,
No, that would
my
be your-
great uncle, I guess you would call
your
him.
great uncle, had
1963 or 4 there. 64.
had a look that so many people have whenever you're speaking or doing retarded stuff like you were doing there. Of what the fuck is that? Did you see? I mean, that's the big story. Now,
I don't
you
remember.
haven't changed.
It was actually, we were going to Cape Cod then. That first scene was like disconnected because the second scene was actually Atlantic City. But that was, I remember going to Cape Cod and going to like the sand dunes, but I don't remember doing that specifically when I was 4. I have a memory one from 2, but that one I don't remember. But I that happened. That was me.
Brian, we try to be serious on this show. I mean, we play, but this is a serious question. At what age, how old were you when you realized that you were just completely odd? And maybe, I've joked for years, people, with him about him being an alien. The best proof I have is he did put up a blue light outside his home, and we all know that that's it. We all know that says something about it. But Brian, that film should say something to you, like, wow. My own great uncle looked at me and said, "What the fuck is he doing?" And that's been like pretty much the consensus
Well, I'll tell you what. You
of.
have to look back then. First of all, when you are 3 or 4, like I think it was 4. Like you could just see my movements. Like kids are like that. You did it too.
Oh
There's so
yeah.
much energy where you just don't know what you're doing. Your arms are flailing everywhere. And I guess my father probably said do something for the camera, and I
Well,
just
that's what
you
I find.
know.
So and I wonder because I've mentioned this before, and I think it's
And
really is
here I
very
am, 50 some years later, basically
on
doing the
camera.
same shit. Except
No,
my energy level is a lot less.
I know we're keeping you awake again tonight. But what's kind of funny about that is I wonder. I mean, that is really cool. I joke about it, but that's really cool. You have those films. A lot of people
Thanks to
don't,
my
and the
father.
memory.
He said to me,
Yep.
one day you're going to be happy I kept them. And he was right. He was actually, we have nothing from my parents except for those
Well,
films.
that's pretty cool. But the point is, what's just thinking about, we've been talking about how, things progress and maybe don't people don't. I mean, what that was, you're probably the first, one of the, not first, but I mean, certainly first in that period of time when we could record
Right.
video.
It
I
was
mean,
like, this stuff was big shit back in the day. The Super
oh,
8.
no, no, no. I mean,
That was.
I don't even know. That would be interesting. Like I remember in the 60s for me, the big thing was the Polaroid camera because you could get the instant
Right. The
picture.
instant. Right.
Not, yeah. And as I said, my family, not that it matters, but, just comparing here, my family was not into new technology. They weren't opposed to it, but I mean, it was just
They
with it.
said one in five, generally 1 in 5 Americans had a Super 8 or a regular 8 camera.
Right. And that just,
But
so I
most
mean,
had stills. The Polaroid was
yeah.
really big.
And of course, that's another way. You could look at progress. We were talking tonight about you messed up the show as you always do in the beginning, but I came to your not to your defense, but to the truth that the technology is just not there yet. Okay, there's too many ways you can make mistakes. But if you look at that film compared to where we are today, you see how much has progressed, right, in terms of
Right.
film.
You're
But
absolutely right. Because you don't have the sound, but that actually has some advantages to it. There's a
oh no, no,
certain.
I'm not
Uh,
questioning that. I'm just saying,
okay.
but if you look at it, from you look at it from a very technical standpoint,
Very
that
analog, but
kind of
I'm going
yeah.
retrograde with that stuff. I enjoy it.
Well, and you
I have a
like that. I
camera here.
mean,
Yeah, I like that.
and that's fine. I don't mean there's anything wrong
Hey,
with it.
and by the way,
But
my project is to take all of these videos starting in the 1950s, and I have a Super 8 camera now, and I'm going to do is I'm going to get a scene eventually, if I'm lucky enough, with my cousins where they were doing the things they were doing in 1960
right,
with me, but I'm going to do it but it had to be Super 8. I couldn't use my, the Pro Max.
right.
I need to use the Super 8 so it can make the connection between the past and the present. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what I want.
But what's so interesting, we never know where the show is going to go tonight or any given night. But we've been talking a little bit about like the UFOs and the future and the past and this. So what I wonder is, okay, that the technology just of film will continue to improve. So
Right.
at some point, I don't know, 100 years from tonight, 500 years from tonight, will we be all hologramming this, right? So everybody will be in the room, our holograms will be in the room. And I mean, who knows? I mean, we just, I mean, I think,
I know one thing. If for example, if we don't have what we're doing right now, which is kind of like with the Super 8 thing, because this will be the Super 8 of the future, that we
right,
will not push ourselves into the future. That video that you just saw from 1964 will outlive me and you, and as will this. So in a
right.
sense, the only piece of us that really will live on will be this, Dave. Like so, right now,
Oh, no.
you have to
Yeah.
think of yourself as speaking to somebody 400 years from now. That's the way you have to kind of look at it because this thing is, I mean, it's happening right now, but this thing pushes itself, and that's why. And you're not going to be allowed to see it, and I'm not going to be allowed to see it. But
No.
you can assure yourself, unless the planet's destroyed, this thing is going to be here.
And see, I think, Brian, that gets to, again, that gets to a very heavy philosophy through technology, but something I believe in. Um, we know, well, okay. I suppose we could argue that this is not reality, but I'm going to say let's not do that tonight. Okay.
Somebody's
Um,
asking about that.
I saw. I know. I saw that.
My suggestion is don't get this. This one is the 3 to 5 inch reels because if you have 7 inch reels and larger, you want to pay an extra $100 and get one like this, but it has the bigger reels. That was a mistake I made because I have to piece them together, which is a real pain in the ass. This is $300. The other one will be
Brian, why don't you just go out and buy the one you need now? What's
well,
keeping you
that
from?
actually, in a certain sense, I almost did it because here I'm buying like these extra things here with the smaller ones, and then you have to buy the splice.
I mean, it would be. It would be.
If
Yeah,
I
it would
had
be
my
interesting.
choice, I would have, but it was my mistake. I thought I didn't.
Okay.
I wasn't
Yeah.
careful, you know.
No, that's it's just funny. So anyway, about this idea of thinking about the future, you're right. I mean, we won't be around to see it, but I think there's two things that might last. What you're talking about, but I think even more than that, lasting is, you know, as we try to leave our impact, whether it's my granddaughter skipping school, certainly with my blessing, to protest, with a group of 13-year-olds about environment, or trying to fight for to end injustice. We're not going to see that either. Okay, we're not. But it's being involved in the fight. I think a lot of people today, and maybe for all time, I can't speak for all time, they look at the success as winning and losing, and you don't always guarantee that, but you can always guarantee that you're involved in the fight if you choose to
Right.
do that.
And that we were.
But the question becomes, of course, what is right and what is wrong, and that you're not familiar with AA or
I know what it
NA.
is.
Well, I know what it is. I mean, you don't attend. I do. And when you first go into that program, you hear this strange saying, everything is, I'm Dave. Hi, my name's Dave, and we have different sayings. Some will say, and I'm an alcoholic, or, I say, hi, I'm Dave. I'm a, alcoholic and drug addict, depending on what you are. But then you hear people say, I'm Jim, and I'm a grateful alcoholic. What the fuck is that about when you first get in the program? But if you do get in that program and it does work, it changes your life for the better. And some things that are bad can do that, or if you come out of it. And I guess in a way, I'm grateful for Donald Trump. I wish it hadn't have to be, because I can't remember a time that I've ever been so convinced that I am right, that he is wrong, for me, for you, for America, and for the world. And for me, that's a very reassuring place. I live a lot of times, in shades of gray. Well, there's this, but I don't even talk about it. There's nothing positive to talk about him. There's nothing positive to talk about the new GOP. There's nothing positive. So it makes it clear where the fights are. What makes it hard is we don't have enough time necessarily. So this is my 2 hours for what it's worth. It helps me vent. I really like the people that are on the show, but it allows me to do this. I live in DC, or live 3 metro stops from DC, so I'm allowed to go to the protests, and have my say there. I contribute to certain. Now, last thing, I was just thinking about this week about paying money and what you do. I don't contribute too often to too many political causes. I don't know if you do or if anybody out there does. And usually I pick a cause a year. And this year it's Special Olympics. That's something I believe in very much. So, I mean, there are people, I'm glad that people contribute money. I don't do that, but I try to contribute time and do some other things. And also, I think sometimes we feel that, we're kind of alone. We're not. I mean, there's people out there every day fighting with us. Well, Anthony, I'm not going to argue with you. Here's the definition that I work under. You can get addicted to substances, but when you're addicted to alcohol or drugs, the difference, you can be addicted to caffeine, you can be addicted to certainly to tobacco. That was the hardest one for me to quit. But there's a difference between being addicted to a substance. Even sex addiction is a little different, because alcohol and drugs are mood changing and mind altering. That's all. I mean, it's not something to argue over. I think, again, yes, I believe you get addicted to a number of things. My wife thinks I'm addicted to spending money. Well, that's interesting. The craziest calls the radical left. Well, that's their perspective. But what I think is more interesting is if you're now a moderate compared to them, you're left. I mean, there's
Right. Just call everybody
what
socialist.
I mean, what the hell is that? As if socialist is a bad word. Good Lord.
Well, they listen to Rush Limbaugh.
Well, I know that. I mean, but it's just stupid. My
It is
God.
stupid. Well, that's stupid wins a lot of the time.
It does. But this
evolution
time,
proves it. So
this time, there may be just too much damn stupidity. Let's just be grateful that not everybody is conniving as Mitch McConnell. I don't think there's anybody as smart as him to do that power. None of its underlings. I don't see any of them. Trump captured the cult of personality. I don't see any of his kids succeeding him. I don't see anybody. I don't see anybody with Trump's power. And so, if indeed it was a cult of personality, that has to diminish. And what's happening is, and we said that before, and I'll leave with this thought. My final thought is, we have to watch the Republican Party fight over who's going to be the next Donald Trump. And I could tell him that now. Ain't nobody.
He's calling you now.
Ain't nobody going to be the next Donald Trump. Ain't nobody. Donald Trump was one of a kind in a once in a lifetime position against someone that he could beat to become president of the United States.
Let's hope.
That's it. No, I'm not saying another Republican can't win. I'm just saying that that's it. And with that, I'm going to say good night. Brian, as always, thank you for having me on the show. I thank everybody.
We have 2 hours left for next week too on my e-cam, and then we'll see what goes on.
Well, basically, what's happening? Brian is very, very not only is he ineffective, but he's also very, shall we say? Well, some people would say frugal. I just say friggin' cheap.
No, I just want to know what's going to happen when I hit zero.
Brian, I told you what's going to happen. He doesn't believe me, folks. But let's put it like this: the show is not going to die. What will actually happen? It'll improve because I'll take over the operation.
Okay.
Because
and it'll be your first podcast that has absolutely no sound whatsoever.
But you know what?
It'll be a black screen. Says Dave
Listen,
Price.
Brian, I just want to say something. If it came to listening to you for an hour, right, or just watching me say nothing for an hour, people would learn more and enjoy it more just watching me sit in silence than you and your stupid ass negative naked ways as a 4-year-old.
Okay.
Talk to you later, bro.
See you later, Dave. And I'll take you guys out with some Naked Days. This is my great uncle. But it was bad. I mean, my dad had actually kicked him out. He was going kind of crazy back in the early 60s. But he was from Russia, believe it or not. But anyway, we'll see you. I'll take you out this way.